this recording. Cool.
Are these the same images from last time?
Yeah, it's the exact same ones, and the code's the same. But what I'm going to do is actually I'm going to delete the majority of the code that we worked with last time, and let's keep the body like so. Nice. Cool. And so I should have a blank HTML file, and then this guy over here. So what we're going to be trying to work with here. Let's see. Is some audio, and you'll see here that back in the day with before HTML5, so like 4 and stuff, we had plug-in and play ideas to make this work, but now we can actually use an element for audio there. Isabel, welcome. How are you? Were you able to get on campus for this one?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, today I'm on campus.
Sure. Okay. So good. So what we're doing right now is I just uploaded a few files into the chat. I'll re-upload them for you here. So if you just want to download those 3 images and the HTML file, and we're just gonna do the remainder of this presentation together, and then I'll discuss what to do after that. There. Okay. Cool. Nice. So you'll see here that the audio element is pretty similar to what we've seen with other elements already, where we can provide a source file. Let me just see here. In the chat, let's see if I can get an MP3 file working here. Oops, sorry. This guy works. Alright, so I'm going to try to download an MP3 file for us to work with. This is really
I was trying, but didn't work.
It didn't work? Okay, so
I'm sorry, what?
Are folks able to hear this on their screen? So they can draw.
No.
Okay, so you can't hear it. Okay. So this is gonna be. Let me see how I. So what I'll do for us is, you're not gonna be able to hear it, but let's just go ahead and see if we can make this work. Whoops. This is an MP3 file. It's just basic drums and I think like cymbal or whatever it is. So it's just some basic instruments. You can run it and play it on your own, but we're going to try to make this work inside of our actual code now. So this is nice in case like you're making, let's just say that you're making a slideshow, you can play music in the background, or you can go ahead and try to make like, if you're artist and you have like your songs, you go ahead and make it work that way. Okay. So notice that I put my MP3 file in the same area as my HTML and my images there too. So we're going to continue with it. And now what I'm going to do is inside of my body, I'm going to create this audio element. Okay. So AUDIO, audio. We'll see here that it actually has an end tag as well. So this one isn't void like an image. It's actually a normal like clip that we can use. Okay. So what we could try to do here is fiddle around a bit with just the source. So if I go ahead and type out source of my audio, I can now go ahead and put slash, and then I'm going to find here in my VS Code, you'll notice that there's a new symbol that says like it's like a speaker. So if I click on that, it will automatically take me there. And we'll see here that's uploading that one. My title is actually changed to that one too for some reason. Now what we could try to do is implement a bit more about what's going on up here as well. We'll see that we have this preload auto and this thing that says controls after it. So let me go ahead and type in this preload auto. So preload auto, and what this will do for us, preload essentially is going to, as the name implies, load something for us automatically, and so essentially load it before the page finishes loading. And then I'm also going to add in these controls. So what controls does is it's a keyword that says the browser will offer controls to allow the user to control audio playback playback, including volume seeking, pause, resume. Okay. So you'll see here that this is actually like the basic HTML to get the controls. And the only way I did that is by simply adding in the keyword to my code that said controls here. Now I have my MP3 file inside of my folder, and if I reload this, I have the play button. It's kind of loud, so let's turn it down. And it's a basic just like song that's playing, so it's whatever. I'm able to play through it, okay? Now this audio is an element, and so what we could do here is you can do your H2, and you could say something like this. This song is playable below. And we'll see here that I get the same HTML working, and I'm able to play it okay. Now if I add anything in between here, let's say this is a test in between my audio things, you'll notice that nothing really is changed inside of it. And usually, even though this is an element with an end tag or start and end tag, we don't really want to add much more into it. Besides the controls. Controls is a good one because it's kind of default, but we could kind of play around with it there as well. Okay. You could also go ahead, when you specify this attribute controls, you'll notice that it's empty. We're not setting controls equal to anything. So you can kind of set it to be whatever it is, but essentially, if we set controls as an empty attribute, it's going to assume we want the basic controls, and it's going to use the ones that are there. Okay? Now, let's go ahead and say, with audio, there's a few more options here. This preload auto is this type of approach that says, you know what, when the browser is loaded, go ahead and download the audio file, as opposed to when I press play on the control bar. So the reason that this is good is that, let's just say I didn't have preload and I had a slower computer. If I hit play, what might happen is that it might take a bit of time for me to catch up and like actually play the file. Whereas if I had preload of auto put into there, this might take a bit more time to actually load properly. But what will happen is that it will play it once it's loaded. So preload auto is a bit better. You usually want to make sure that people are able to load in everything before seeing your website. So like you don't want images popping in later or audio playing at incorrect times. So you usually want to approach it by saying preload auto. And preload auto would just say load the content as soon as I open up that page. Okay. Now there's a new thing here. If I go ahead and type out autoplay, autoplay is a Boolean attribute, so some of us might be familiar with coding. This keyword Boolean, you can kind of consider it with like a lot of life as well. Does anyone know what the two values of Boolean might be? Has anyone heard of that term before, or is that a newer term?
Yeah, 1 and 0.
Nice, 1 and 0, right? Or true and false, right? So Boolean essentially says like it's either one thing or the other. And autoplay, when I type out autoplay, this is a Boolean value. So if I actually type out autoplay, that's going to say true. So this is saying true to me. And what this means essentially is that it says I'm going to autoplay something. If I go ahead and say no autoplay, that means that it's false. Essentially, it's not existing. So my autoplay won't work. So if I go ahead and say autoplay here, oh, looks like it's not working for me right away. But what should happen, oops, let me make it a bit quieter, that it should automatically play once it's loaded. Now, if I go ahead, I think there's one more that's called loop, another Boolean attribute like so. If I play this guy, go to the end, you'll see here that without me even touching it, I'm going to put my cursor over here. It just loops it back. So when do you want to use loop? Let's just say that you have a background image that's really cool looking, and it's like a GIF that's like has space moving, but for some reason like it stops, it holds at the end, and then it like restarts. You could use loop so that it seamlessly goes into the next phase, and you could have like a cool background image. So looping with audio is a nice one. If you have very subtle background noises that like kind of repeats itself, you could use loops. Looping is used quite a bit there. My autoplay seems to not be working okay. Let me go ahead and delete controls and use the autoplay feature here. So I deleted controls and I used autoplay. And looks like...
This song is playable.
Oh, that's just read along. Never mind. I'm going to add controls back in. It looks like my autoplay is being a bit iffy with me, though, and it won't be working. Let's see here. And let me refresh this. Nice. Cool. So that's more about audio. And again, with autoplay, as it says here, there's no need to specify preload. Actually, let's see here. If I delete preload, it's still not doing it for me, really. Autoplay might be a bit of an issue. But cool, now we can go ahead and with different audio formats as well. Let's see here. If we're dealing with different audio formats besides MP3, like MPEG, WAV, or OGG, there's a bunch of different ones. What you're going to want to use is surround the audio clips there, and then reference this source. So what I'll do here is let me get a wave sound for us. And I'll add it into the chat as well. Let's just make sure that this is okay.
I don't know what happens, but every time I try to download something from the chat, my Zoom meeting collapses.
Oh, really? Okay, let me I wonder, would a zip file be better, or is it just any file at all?
Maybe. I think that helps, I guess.
Okay, let me zip all this up for us. This way. So I'm gonna rename these guys here. Let me zip this. Here we go. Okay. And
motion elements.
okay.
Can you just send the practice wave separate?
Yep.
Because I already have all of them. Thank you.
There we go. Let me send that one there. That was a little weird, but it should work. So it's a wave. So I found out if you have different ones you want to use, that's fine. Too, it should be good. Now we'll see here. Let me go ahead and we can't really hear it on my end, but if I have my source typed out, and I do my / practice wave down here. Let me try out the controls, autoplay, or let me just do controls and loop like so. And I have my audio done. We'll notice that I get this issue. It's kind of putting it to the left. One of them is giving me an oh, let me see here. Practice. So I actually renamed this guy Practice MP3. You'll notice that it grays it out if the file doesn't exist, which is a neat little feature. So it looks like this is working okay for us, but sometimes you might encounter issues where for some reason your browser doesn't support that audio. Most browsers might support it too, but let's just say, for instance, we're using Internet Explorer and it doesn't support WAV. What we can do is just tell the remove the source attribute from all these guys, and we'll say, you know what, I'm going to provide you a bunch of snippets of audio. All these audios should have controls. They should loop with each other. And now what I'm going to do is use this keyword that says source. So this is a multimedia resource. So this means that this could be an image. It could be a picture. It could be a link. It could be a audio file. And what the source is going to tell us is where we should actually go ahead and find the file. So this one will be practice mp3.mp3. And what we could say is we can also specify the type of file that it's going to be. Okay. So the way that we could specify it is by saying this is an audio file that is of type mp3. Now again, do you need to do this? Well, we just saw earlier, WAV. So I'm going to call this one audio .wav because that's the type that, oops, sorry, not .wav, but /wav because that's the type of audio that it is. Now, the general idea here is that you only need to do this if you have an issue with the source not being found. Okay, now let's see why this guy isn't showing up for me here. Did I type him wrong? I think he's the right
So
name.
what you're saying is that not all audios are going to be understood as audio.
Nice. So one way to look at that is that if you're working in an older browser for someone and the browser can't run a WAV file, what you could do is something like this, where it will take it in as a source and it will apply these audio attributes to it. That's essentially what is happening there for us. Looks like it's being a bit glitchy for me, but we saw earlier, so this is one approach we could use. I'm going to Control-C this really quick, and let me undo this to what we had earlier, where we just had the same thing twice. Whoops, I think it was right here. There we go. So we'll see here that my other... What's this MP3? My other version of this actually still works though. So now that the Edge browser has been updated, Google Chrome and Mozilla and Opera's few us are using have been updated, the WAV file will actually run just fine. So most current browsers will run it, but you never know what you're going to get into where a browser might not run a certain thing or it might not be supportive of certain things. So you can do this approach if you're dealing with browsers that don't support certain audio. Okay. Cool. Nice. So that's essentially the general idea here, where we have these different styles of audio. See here. And you can see here, we can add in the body code, and then you could have a bunch of different audios here, right? So in this example with the controls, you'll see that we have different MP3 sounds with different sounds, and they're all like able to be controlled with a download sign too. Now, some of us have already been working with background images background color schemes. And what we could say here is that if I have this page and I go up into my style element, I can apply to my body a background color of like light green. And we'll see here that I get a light green one. Let me get something that's not as harsh. Okay. So I could have a light green image or light gray image. I could also go ahead and say background image. And this image here is able to determine what I want to put. So I can actually go ahead and provide an image link. I could even provide the URL of it. But what we're going to say is the URL to an image file. Now a URL, as you'll see in the quiz too, that's Universal Resource Locator. It's like where the location is. And usually we think of URLs with the websites online, but we can also specify it as a location for where something is. So what we saw earlier, I think one of the images that I had was Cake Tree or something like that. This was a different one. So what I could say here is the URL of my background image is /, let me do caketree.jpg, close this guy off, and we'll see here, this looks a little weird, but now I have this cake as my background image. And what will happen is that if I don't specify anything else about this background image, it's going to try to fill it in as best as it can.
Why did you put // and not just cake?
Great point. So if I use regular cake, it's the same thing will occur. I've just been using / to showcase that we're in the same directory. If you don't like using that though, that's fine. It's a bit redundant, but the only reason I'm doing it is that in VS Code, it will still work without it. But if I do // it will show my current directory of things. So that's the only reason I'm doing it there.
Okay.
So it's just a way to showcase. And then like if you're rewatching the video and you see that,
So you don't need to type the whole thing.
No, good point. You actually don't need to provide that at all, and it will work just fine. Okay. Cool.
Is there an auto to resize the image to the full?
Yeah, let's see how this let's see if we can mess around a bit with this image. You'll see of course I don't make a blend in, but you'll notice that the viewports can be changed. And so the default behavior here is to fill the entire viewpoint with multiple copies of the image, but we could try to change that around a little bit. So one thing that we could do here is messing around with the background size, attachments, and positions. So let's go ahead and just mess around with background size for the time being. Let me just use that biggest image of the cake that we had. Okay, so this one's here. So if I do background repeat, let's just see if we can do it this way. We could say background repeat, no repeat. We'll see here that I actually got rid of my repetition of tiles there. But we'll notice that I don't have any more space to cover this image. So what we could try to do as well is background size. And the size of this one, there's a few of them. Let's try out auto. Let's see what happens with auto. We'll see it kind of automatically sets it into that space there. There's one that says contain. So contain is a way that it's going to scale it to the image size there, which is a bit smaller. Let's try cover. You'll see here that cover is actually going to go ahead and based on my width of my screen, going to cover my image. So if I make it full screen, my width is full screen, it's going to make the full image. If I make it half screen, you notice that it's still keeping the full width, but it's not covering it down there. If I wanted it to cover it down there, let me get rid of this no repeat. And we'll see here that if it's not able to cover it, it's going to repeat the image again with the same width. Okay. There's some attachments and positions that we can work with as well. Let's go ahead and let's add back into background repeat, no repeat. And then what I could say is background position. Let me try center here. We'll see here that it centers my image wherever I go now. And what it's doing is it's centering it on the image itself. So it's a bit different than what you might have expected. But we can see here, because I'm using cover, it's going to kind of look a bit different. So what if I go ahead and use contain? We'll see here that it's centering my image in the contained version of it. Okay. So I won't go through all of them. There's plenty to play around with. The last one might be background attachment. Let's just see if I add that one in. Let's say fixed. And we'll see here when I do background attachment of fixed, it's going to center my image and always fix it right into the center of my viewport. That's what that background attachment is. So it's going to attach it to that image. Otherwise, it won't kind of mess around with it there. Okay.
The background, the fixed background.
Fixed, yeah. So this one is fixed.
Right. When you scroll down the page, will it stay?
Yep. Let's go ahead and let me do like style. Okay, we'll see here that you can actually get some pretty cool. You might have seen websites where it's like the image is centered and the thing to scroll around it. That's what the fixed image is. So you kind of have this fixed image that's there. You get a cool little design with it, right? Cool. And you'll notice that my this image isn't affecting anything in between here. It's just like existing in the background. Now instead of fixed, I think there's a few more. Scroll. We'll see here. Let me add like 10,000, 100,000. That's a lot actually. Let me just use 10K. Okay. We'll see here that if I scroll it, it just kind of does the normal thing that we're expecting, where it's in the middle. Let me go ahead and try one more different version. Local. It's fixed to the background, I think, regardless of the content. These are all kind of different here. I think the fixed one's probably the best one for us, where we can scroll down and then it's fixed to the center. That one looks pretty cool. Okay. Cool. So play around with these. These are all doing different things, and of course, different versions of it as well. You can read through these if you'd like to figure out where the positions are. But again, we can see here. Oops, bit side. If I cover my background with no repeat, I have a bit of dead space because I'm covering the width. If I have the cover of my background and I attach it to it, it's going to crop out the space of the image. So it will actually crop out one side of it. If I cover my background size and I fix it and then I center my image, what it will do is it will crop out evenly from each side until it gets it centered. So those are the different scenarios you can run into. And again, which one's the best? Whichever one you prefer using for your approach there. Okay. Cool. Nice. So the last thing that we can kind of look at here as well is the without the plug and play. We'll look back at web fonts, but we could take a look at the videos as well. See here. And videos are going to be a bit similar to MP3s and how they're implemented. Let's just see here. Let me try to find this one. Okay, so I have this video of a dog. Let me download this guy. Let me download it for us, and then I'll toss it into the chat. Actually, let me get a smaller file. All right. If you could just give me a few seconds here, I'll need it. It's taking a little while to download. Sorry about that. But again, these images are pretty nice. And while we're waiting for this guy to download, you'll see here that there's standard web fonts. Tomahawk and Courier New is stuff that we've already used. But we've seen this before in your capstone project. You use this concept of font family. So you can always include a generic font family. And then up here, you can go ahead and try to reference where these fonts are coming from. So we'll see here that we can create a CSS rule for font face, where you can go ahead and add these types of fonts to your Halloween website based off of a font family that you create. So this one is called Buffied. And now we can actually reference a custom font called Buffied there as well. And you'll notice here that there's a serif after it. That will probably be defaulted to if it's not working properly. But what we could try to do here, let's try to do a font ourselves. URL fonts. Let me see if I can get a decent one here. And this is the MP4 that I found here. Oh, this is actually an MOV. So why don't we just work with the MOV instead of the MP4? Uh-oh. Okay. So it's going to be called the dog. I think everyone should be able to get that okay. This one's really large, though. I think it should be okay even if it's large. But in general, we could try to go ahead, and if you have a font created for you, you can reference the source and format it as well. Okay. Don't worry too much about the web fonts. They're usually, you'll see here, the WAF and WAF 2.0 files are pretty outdated. You'll find a lot of .ttf and .ttf, which stands for True Type Font. Apple has a ton of them, and Windows does as well. And you can kind of install them the exact same way using this concept. So install them into your folder, and then you can just kind of copy this code here forward. We can do that after we figure out this video. So a video again, if I go ahead and just maybe in the middle of my web page here, I can say something like video. And after I go ahead and say video, I can reference the source of my thing. So I could say dog.mov. See here. Well, see here, I actually get this massive video. I'm going to actually go ahead and remove the Let me just do 10 pixels of padding. We'll see here that my full video is actually brought into my screen here. So it's actually like this massive dog video. I'm actually not able to do anything with it. I just have an image of it. So now what I can try to do here, let's open up over here, is I can specify in my video the width and height. Let me actually put here. I could specify the width and the height of the video that I would like. So I can do like 350 pixels. Let's try something like this. Cool. And now we'll see that I have a pretty nice video that's working. Let me do a few line breaks in here so that they're all on the one line. Cool. So now I have this video that's underneath these two guys here. I have some text down here as well. And what I can do next here, I should move this guy. There we go. What I can do next is attempt to add in some controls for this guy as well. So very similar to my audio. If I type out the keywords controls, we'll see here, of course, I get the video that I have. So I have a video of a dog in my HTML, right? I don't have any audio on the video because it's a MOV for the time being. Another cool thing is that you can use this concept of a poster. They didn't really have good names at the time when they came up with these. But a poster is something that you probably already know of. It's going to be kind of similar to that thumbnail. The poster will do is it's going to take whatever image you provide it and make it a thumbnail for the video. So let me do caketree.jpg. Cool. So if you want a thumbnail on your video, let me full screen this. What I did is I said controls to get the controls out. Poster is equal to the location of an image that I want to use. After I made that, we'll see here that I now have this thumbnail and I can play my video like normal.
Oh,
Okay.
so that's the way they make the clickbaits. Okay.
Yeah, that's good point, right? That's a good point. I guess I'm kind of clickbaity with this one too, right? Like I have a cake and it's a dog, so you know, always subvert your audience's expectations, I should say. Cool. So there's a few things here, posters. I'm not sure. My video probably doesn't have audio, which is why I don't have this. But if your video did have audio, like an MP4 file, you'd be able to change it there. Now, unfortunately, similar to the previous versions, you might encounter a situation where you have audios or browsers with older compatibilities. What you would do in that scenario is you do something really similar to this one, where you would do the source, you would reference the file, and then you would change the type. But honestly, at this day and age, most browsers, if they're not deprecated and they're being used, the video will work for them. Most browsers are pretty competent now. Edge, Mozilla, Google Chrome, I believe Opera and stuff, they should all be able to support all these pretty easily. Okay. Cool. Now, the alternative to doing a video from a web page so you'll notice here that if I set up this video, I might not have access to the dog.mov. What we could try to do here is referencing an iframe element. So we could do something with our iframe, which is what we were looking at previously. Oops, let me go over here. And let me just find a normal YouTube video on my browser here. Let's see here. Cool. So let's see. Let me get. Yep. So this is just like a music URL that I have here. So what we might be tempted to do is that this is a YouTube link to a watch video that's like a music one. Let me try to go ahead and grab my source to this guy. And let's put them into this source section right here. Let me do one more BR. Let me do a H2 and say something like this here. So I have an embedded video, then a YouTube one. But you'll notice that I'm actually not able to click play on this guy. My controls are actually grayed out and I'm getting an error here. So the alternative to using, as we said earlier, instead of using the video source, is to change this guy into an actual iframe. So let me save this guy for the time being down here. What I could say here is iframe, and then I'm going to go ahead and give it the same width and height. So 350 pixels, 200 pixels of my height. And my source, I could set it equal to this YouTube video. Oh, it's refusing to connect now. So there might be a security thing here. Let me try to see if I can get the, instead of just getting the URL, what I could try to do here. Let me just get a normal video. Here we go. So everyone, YouTube, it's usually, the hardest part is kind of finding a video. So, copy embedded code. This one works. Let me do one more thing for us really quick before I showcase what I did. So this guy might not be working for me. Let me see if I could do something else here. So right here I have this video. It's an Americans on Earth. It's just a basic URL video. I was trying to use an iframe with my source here, but if I right click on this guy of my YouTube video and I hit this copy embedded code, and you'll notice that I right clicked on my video and I just hit this one. What you could try to do here is, let's look at our HTML code. If I paste this guy, you'll notice what it copies is an iframe for me. So my YouTube automatically copies an iframe based on the HTML. So it gives you HTML code. You'll see here that it automatically gives me a bunch of features, frame border and everything like that too. Let me save this and let's refresh this. And you'll notice that it actually just puts the YouTube video directly into my page like here. And again, how did I do that? We didn't do it manually because YouTube updated its things. What I did is I right-clicked on it, copy embedded code. That's all I need. And it made it easier for us, so now I could change it. Now, can I edit this? Of course, right? It's your code. YouTube doesn't really care. Let's put this back on the side. You could change the height. Let's make it the same height as my embedded one. 350 pixels. Then 200 pixels, like so. Source could be the same. Title. History. Channel. The frame border, let me do like 4. Let's see what happens when I have it as 4. Allow full screen is there too. So if I save this, you'll notice it changes quite a bit, and I have a frame border pop up as well. And now I can actually play it, and I have this full screen so I can full screen it as well. So a lot I can do here. Cool. Nice. So those are videos.
And this frame border, it's on 4. It's what, 4 pixels for.
So yeah, like 4 pixels out. Let me do 10. You'll see here that it's kind of hard. It's actually, let me make this bigger. So you'll see here there's like 10 pixels of a border, as you said there on the side. You could also go ahead, let's make this like 100.
Oh, you didn't put pixels.
Oh, that's a good point. Thank you. It looks like, actually, what is this frame border doing for us?
Can you make it a little bit bigger? 100.
100 pixels. So it looks like it's not actually changing for me. Let me double check this real quick. What is that?
All the rest of it on the embedded code, is it actually doing something?
The rest of the embedded code?
Like encrypted media, gyroscope, picture-in-picture.
Yeah, let's see. So autoplay, it looks like autoplay isn't really working for us both on this side and on our other one. But let's take a look. I believe that what's happening here is frame border isn't supported by Edge. So it's not supporting it right now. That might be what's happening. But you'll see here that if I had let's say picture-in-picture, let me get rid of, I think, one that I know. Shoot. Clipboard right. Let's go ahead and say, so I can right click on this right now to get the pop up there. If I go ahead and delete this clipboard right, let's see what happens. Refresh this. Looks like I can still kind of right click on it, sign. I believe most of these, some of them might be supported and some might not be. Let's delete picture-in-picture.
If you try on Chrome, will it change anything?
Yeah, let's try that actually. Let's get a fresh Chrome tab open. Let's get this guy signed. So this is the default Chrome tab. No, it looks like it's working just okay. So it looks like I can't. What happens if I delete all of these here? Huh. So it looks like, so to answer your question, I'm not sure what those other ones are doing, but it looks like it works just okay without it. What might be happening is that HTML5 might be having a few issues with these guys, but it is HTML code, so it should be okay. I think this one should, so if I delete allow full screen, we'll see here I have a full screen option here. Let me refresh it. You'll see here now full screen is unavailable. So that's one option where it might not work for us. There's probably plenty of these in the iFrame part as well. Allow full screen, allow payment requests and stuff. So there's a bunch of things here with the videos that you can work with, or iFrames that you can work with. But in general, those should be working for us. Okay.
Can you just explain one more time the difference between the video tag and iframe tag? For which purpose should I use iframe
Oh,
tag?
great question. So we actually can look at this too. The difference here. So right away, the easier difference is that I copied over from YouTube and I got the iframe. So that's one. But like the other one is that as the iframe is easier to use. So if you're using YouTube and you want to put a YouTube video inside of your website, iFrame is most likely easier to use because you're linking to an external hoster that has it there. And another thing is that if it's hosted on YouTube, all you need is the URL. There's nothing on your web server that is saving it, right? For instance, I have 100 megabytes, 150 kilobytes dedicated to this video right now on my web server, quote unquote. Video, though, is that the video is easier because we have more control over video. As you can see up here, I am messing around in the iframe with channel things that don't really make a difference. In the video, everything I put up here is a bit easier to work with. And then you could also see here as well. Later on, we'll learn JavaScript, so we can we can mess around with our video for it. And mostly the biggest thing, the difference between video and iframe is how you want to host your data. So if you want to keep everything, if you have your own personal videos, say it's like Joe is putting together with his drone, like he recorded videos with the MP4 files. He has those videos and he doesn't want to upload them to YouTube. He can keep them on his website here and just reference a video. No one knows or has any external access to these URLs here. They're all hosted individually. He can control the width and the height. And the user, once the user loads into their page, they might need to download the videos. So that might be a drawback, but it's more functionality on our end. However, let's say that they're all uploaded to YouTube. You could just put in a few iframes and link it to the YouTube channel. And these don't need to be loaded as soon as it loads in, because it's much faster to load a YouTube video that's a URL than it is for a pre-built 150 kilobyte video here. So the load times are different, but again, it's kind of down to you on how you're hosting your videos and how you want to display them to the user there. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so maybe not being able to change the coding on the iframe, because instead of getting your own MP3 or MOV files, you get them from YouTube, and
Yeah.
some kind of encryption or something that's blocking you to change it.
That's the other issue. It's a great point to make up, is that YouTube has a myriad of its own issues that like we can't really do anything with on our HTML end. So you're much like you're on your own with video, which is good in a lot of ways. So you don't need to deal with anything. But at the same time, the convenience of this is there. So if you have a video that's like extra help, you just right click and copy embedded code, and then toss it into your site there. But yeah, you were right. So there might be things like that. Cool. Okay. Does anyone have any questions on audio or video or anything like this, or the background image? I'll actually add back. My website looks, as you can tell, I'm probably not the best freelance web designer because my websites look horrible here. But again, the main practice of the coding and everything is that you're getting the idea of how to approach them. I think I just called it cake.
Wait, can you use a video as a background?
Oh, that's actually
the dog video on
let's try it. Oh no, it looks like it's. You might be able to use a GIF instead of a video. You might be able to use a GIF. Let me see if I can go back to the space GIF that we used. Is this it? Okay. Sorry, everyone. I'm kind of jumping. Let's see it here. Oh, cool.
You can. That now
you can use a it's looking it looks cooler than the cake image. So you can use a GIF inside of it, and then you could scroll around it and have this image. You can mess around with the space and everything, but again, this could be one way to approach it. Okay.
Cool. And why are you using URL to?
Oh, great. Actually, let's see if we need that. If I go ahead and delete URL here, you'll notice that if I get this issue, that my code is kind of tweaking out because it's CSS, and CSS is like I don't know what // means, and also I don't know if I put a string of space.gift, I have no idea how to process this information here. Okay, so the way that you tell your CSS to process the location of anything is you could say here URL, reference an image file by URL. URL is the universal resource locator. So essentially what that would mean is the name or the location of something. So we usually think of URLs as websites, but the exact same thing can be said for your location of your file. So if you are in CSS in a style sheet or in an external style sheet and you want to reference the location of something, you need to put a URL around it to make sure that that's working there. Okay.
Oh, okay. So basically, URL is going to be the source, but in silent.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's essentially synonymous to source is equal to, but for CSS.
Okay.
Cool. This is working. Cool.
Oh, so it wouldn't work with source.
I don't know if it would. Let me go ahead and say source. Source is equal to. The issue is right now is that we're trying to apply HTML code to a CSS code, which isn't going to work. You can see here.
Wait, everything that I do inside style is CSS then?
Yep. Everything here is this is your internal style sheet. So that's all CSS. This is all a cascading style sheet.
I thought that to work with CSS, to do CSS, it was a different, I had to have a different page, a different code.
Oh, you if you have an external style sheet, you can do it that way, which is what we did on week 2. Right now, I've just been using styles because it's easier. But you can see here, practice styles is a CSS source file. And if you're using a CSS source file that's different, what you're going to want
And
to
we don't
do...
need to initiate anything. We don't need to like to say just like start calling numbers and names
Well,
and
the one thing you need to do is that if you're using an external style sheet, the one thing you have to remember is to reference it inside of your code, right? Oh, it looks like I didn't do it in the example, but all you need to do is link it if you're using it that way. Otherwise, though, if you're not using it and you don't want an external one and you just are modifying a few things like body, then you can just keep it all inside of here.
And I know it's I'm being a little greedy on that, but on the same opposite way, instead of using source on the body, you can use URL.
Oh, let's see here. Inside of body, something like this.
Yeah.
Let's see here. What's the one YouTube video? URL is equal to this guy here. You'll see here that URL actually doesn't work. So URL is only for CSS. Source SRC is for HTML.
Okay.
Now, the last point that I can make is the last place you can do CSS in your HTML is when you do style is equal to. And again, we've seen this a lot. Everything that I'm highlighting right now inside of these quotation marks is CSS code as well. So this is HTML, style and equals. This is CSS. Okay. Cool. So let me stop there.